Stellar Knight Zefra Thuban mainly serves the purpose of spot removal, but it can also be used as a scale for Zefra Path or 9 Pillars of Yang Zing, as those are important archetype cards, and Thuban counts as a combo piece. We will come back to those cards later. Thuban is a level 4 monster, so it is a prime card to use as material for a rank 4 Xyz monster. Thuban is specifically a scale 1 pendulum monster, so it is a low scale. Zefroxy is similar to Thuban as a combo piece, but it's actually a better combo piece than Thuban because it does the same thing as Thuban and more. It can make any Zefra monster a tuner upon pendulum summon, which enables your key synchro plays, specifically level 9 for the level 6 Zefra Neo to combine with the level 3 Zefroxy, or a level 7 synchro when combining Zefroxy with one of the level 4 Stellar Knight to Zefra. More importantly, Zefroxy is a Yang Zing, so it combines with 9 pillars in the pendulum zone, as Zefra Neo could always succumb to a kaiju, so that way you can still get that negate in, but no search for war. Also no spot removal. Zefroxy is specifically a scale 1 pendulum monster, so it is a low scale. Zefra Neo is the most important card of the archetype aside from Zefra, as it searches all of the main deck cards that are essential for gameplay, specifically the spell Zefra Path, the counter traps Zefra Divine Strike, and 9 Pillars of Yang Zing, as well as the normal trap Zefra War. Nothing too complicated if you understand the program. Zefra Neo is specifically a scale 7 pendulum monster, so it is a high scale. Stellar Knight Zefroxyton is much like Thuban in the sense that it is primarily meant for spot removal and is prime rank 4 fodder. Zefroxyton is specifically a scale 7 pendulum monster, a high scale, which means it is especially good for pendulum summoning Zefra Neo if needed. The most important pendulum monster in this archetype is Zefroth. This is primarily used to add Zefra Neo from your deck to your extra deck. More importantly, in addition to searching Zefra Neo, it will also copy the pendulum scale of whatever Zefra pendulum monster it searches, so it doubles as a scale, meaning that this card is not just a clone for a reinforcement of the army. We have other cards for that in a bit. It plays multiple roles simultaneously. Anyway, it is also worth noting that Zefroth is the one Zefra pendulum monster that allows you to pendulum summon monsters outside the Zefra archetype, so it plays a huge role in extending the possibilities regarding lines of play, and that is no exaggeration. Zefra Providence searches every Zefra card is one of those Rota-clones I was referring to earlier. Monster spells traps all of them. However, it also carries the benefit of protecting your Zefra cards on the field from destruction by banishing itself from the graveyard when destruction would normally occur, which is particularly important for Zefroth and any other Zefra scale you may have in the Pendulum Zone. All around good card. Arguably the best in the archetype aside from Zefroth. Wait, that sounds familiar. Not Team Samurai X1, but I'm sure gonna join them if I keep up with this language. Back on topic, we have Oracle of Zefra, which is similar to Providence, but it only searches monsters and there's no protection effect. But for its purposes, the search effect is all you really need. Also, it does have bonus effects for the extra deck summons, but you can dismiss these if you like. I might do a video featuring Oracle's bonus effects later, so don't sleep on it too much. It's not Providence, but it's all around good in its own right. Still a mandatory inclusion. 9 Pillars of Yang Zing is your primary counter trap for a pure Zefra build such as this one, as it is the one counter trap that best serves the strategy because of its basic combo. Have 2 Zefra scales out while having this card set, and Zefra Neo in the monster zone. All of these steps are important because once you use 9 pillars on your opponent's turn to put out that negate, you will also be destroying Zefra Neo, and when you destroy Zefra Neo, you will be searching Zefra War with its effect. If you have 2 Zefra cards in your pendulum zone, you can activate this from your hand, so busting out Zefra Neo with 2 Zefra scales will double your profits on searching. Did I mention that this shuffles the opponent's card into the deck as opposed to destroying? I will also explain an interaction Pillars has with a certain Synchro monster later on. Now, I largely explained Zefra War already, but I think there are some interactions that can still be explained. If you aren't using 9 Pillars because you're using combos from outside the Archetype or something, you can still use War by searching it directly with Zefra Neo or Providence and setting it alongside another trap. No 9 Pillars required for War per se, and you could potentially use the Activate from Hand effect to play this card as spot removal. Zefra Divine Strike works much like 9 Pillars as a counter trap, but this time you don't get a search. However, this card is still fully worth playing since you don't need to have Zefra Neo on the field for this card to work. In fact, you can get this thing off by banishing any Zefra monster from your extra deck, so your options are out there. Good card to have whether you're using it alongside Pillars by itself, under some monster negates, or under a collective ensemble of monsters and back row. Zefra Path is the last of our back row disruptions, and I will be honest with you, it works pretty funny, but it's a nice deal. So to activate this, you will need 2 Zefra scales in play, much like with 9 Pillars, but this time you specifically need your Zefra scales to be 1 and 7 respectively, so you can't use Zefra with its base scale value. Now for the actual effect, the thing locks both players out of special summoning from any location other than the hand or extra deck. Pendulum Summon is still good, though. Madalche Mageline is a strange card, I admit it, but what it does is that you normal summon it. Search Madalche Petting Sassor, summon Petting Sassor, use the 2 to Xyz summon Gallant Granite, which has the ability to search Zefra because it is a rock monster. Another cool feature with Mageline is that it's a spellcaster monster, so if you special summon another monster, then bring out Mageline, while your graveyard has no monsters, of course, and special summon Petting Sassor, you can use the monsters to summon Selene, the Queen of the Master Magicians, without using Crystron Halqifibrax, both of which I will describe in more detail later. Set Rotation and Terraforming are here to search Oracle, Dragon Ravine, or Necro Valley, but they would not be in this deck without Oracle for sure. That's all I really have to say on the matter. Spring King Dragon Darkwurm serves a somewhat similar purpose to Zefra, except its searching target isn't quite functional by itself like Zefra Neo, but it generically lets you pendulum summon virtually any monster. You might think of it as your other Zefra, or not. Your choice, really. Anyway, the exact function of Darkwurm is that if it is normal or special summoned, you can search Supreme King Gate 0, which is that scale that basically lets you pendulum summon anything. The other effect of Darkwurm is that if it is in your graveyard and you control no monsters, you can special summon it. Now we need to talk about why the graveyard effect is relevant. Dragon Shrine allows you to send a dragon monster from your deck to your graveyard, which would be Darkwurm since Darkwurm is a dragon. Shrine is not the only way to send Darkwurm from your deck to your graveyard because you also have Dragon Ravine, which is a field spell which basically has the same effect as Shrine, but you have to discard a card for cost to make it work. As for why Ravine would be worth playing, its field spell status will allow you to search it out with Terraforming or Set Rotation, which effectively gives you 6 copies of Dragon Shrine in the deck. But there is one more related card to talk about here. Destrudel the Lost Dragon's Frisian is a dragon and a tuner with the ability to special summon itself from the graveyard or hand just by controlling every level 6 or lower monster you target, and when its effect is used, Destrudo's level will reduce by the value of its target. So using it on any given monster lets you Synchro summon a level 7 monster by default. Furthermore, Destrudo can be searched by the aforementioned Shrine and Ravine, so it has synergy with the Darkwurm/Dragon engine, and its tuner status lets you use it as a way to access Crystron Halqifibrax. Now, the majority of the cards are left to talk about are hand traps, at least for the main deck. PSY-Frame Gamma allows you to negate the activation of your opponent's monster effect, as well as special summon itself from your hand alongside PSY-Frame Driver from wherever. The condition for activating this wonderful effect is that you must control no monsters, kind of like Darkwurm. The idea for this card is that it serves as a hand trap and doubles as a way to protect your plays before you summon any monsters, kind of like Called by the Grave. Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring is used to negate searching effects of all kinds in the event that you go second, but is also searchable by certain key cards I will be mentioning later, and the same goes for Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, as well as Effect Veiler. Perform Pal Synchron is meant to be used in conjunction with Crystron Halqifibrax, Selene, Queen of the Master Magicians, and Effect Veiler. Either you use Veiler as link material for Halqifibrax to special summon Synchron or vice versa, since they're both spellcaster tuners, but more on that later. Necro Valley is a searching target for terraforming or set rotation and can be used as a pretty mean lockdown, as it prevents cards from being taken out of either player's graveyard. This will interfere with the protection effect of Providence, but I think the benefits outweigh the downsides. Crystron Halqifibrax is a link to link monsters whose material requires 2 monsters, including at least 1 tuner. This card has 2 major functions, with each one being rather complex in its own right, depending on how you play this card. The first function is that if Halqifibrax is link summoned, you can special summon 1 level 3 or lower tuner from your hand or deck, and the main target for this effect is going to be Effect Veiler or Synchron, for reasons I will explain shortly. However, this card is also well used on Ash Blossom or Ghost Ogre, especially Ghost Ogre, as a lock-on activating the tuner's effect imposed by Halqifibrax expires once the turn passes over to the opposing player. This means that Ghost Ogre can use its effect if it is summoned by Halqifibrax if you use the effect in a more patient manner. The other function is that Halqifibrax will special summon a tuner synchro monster from the extra deck, and this will be treated as a synchro summon. Selene, Queen of the Master Magicians, is a Link 3 Link monster that requires 2 or more monsters, including at least 1 spellcaster monster. If it is Link summoned, you will be able to place a number of spell counters on it equal to the number of spell cards on your field and in your graveyard. The main attraction of this card is that you can remove 3 spell counters from it to special summon 1 spellcaster monster from your graveyard, usually Effect Veiler, but it could be used on Magdalene or Synchron if you discarded Synchron with Ravine or something. The main idea behind using this card is to quickly turbo Apollousa, Bow of the Goddess. I should probably explain what Apollousa does right about now. Well, it's like Halqifibrax in the sense that it has a somewhat complicated applications, but that's what this video is for, so let's go. Apollousa is a Link 4 Link monster that requires at least 2 monsters with different names, and its original attack becomes equal to the number of materials used to Link summon it times 800. Once per chain, when your opponent activates a monster effect, this is a quick effect, you can make this card lose exactly 800 attack, and if you do, negate the activation. Why you would want to use Selene to bust this out is because Selene will let you put out the necessary materials prior to your Pendulum Summon, which protects your more essential plays from being hit by Nibiru, the primal being. Apollousa can also be generally disruptive as a first turn play, but shielding against high-power hand traps is the best function of this card. The next member of the Crystal Squad is TG Wonder Magician, which is a tuner synchro monster that you would want to use as a target for the second effect of Halqifibrax. When you synchro summon this card, you will destroy a spell or trap on the field, which can be used to disrupt the opponent's plays, but there's an even better application for this card. You can conduct a Synchro summon on your opponent's turn with this card's effect, and I found 2 ideal targets for using this effect that can cause further disruption. Xiaofeng, Phantom of the Yangzing, is a level 9 Synchro monster that will take 1 tuner and 1 or more non-tuner monsters, meaning that is generic, but you would preferably use those Yangzing Zefra as materials so that you might lock your opponent out of using Earth monsters, if the situation calls for it. Why? While the Synchro Summon card is on the field, your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters with the same original attributes as the Yangzing monsters used for the Synchro Summon of this card. But that's not even the main reason I'm using this card, because he has an interaction with 9 pillars that's very similar to Zefra Neo, except instead of searching War, you're searching any tuner. This could be the obvious Ash Blossom, the less mainstream Ghost Ogre, or the ever-so-random Gamma, just in case your board goes empty upon resolving 9 pillars. You don't even need to use this with Halqifibrax, it's just a perk. The other Wonder Magician target I was thinking about is known as Virtual World QB Shenshen. It's another generic level 9 Synchro, though I don't have any special recommendations for summoning this monster, so use whatever means you like. What this card does is that while it's on your board, any card sent from the field to the graveyard is banished instead, which is a pretty heavy lock for decks that need the graveyard for recursion or worse, basic combos. Yeah, this card is basically Necro Valley, but it's mounted onto your extra deck instead of your main deck. You also don't need Halqifibrax to abuse the shite out of this card either, so you could use it much like Xiaofeng, but you can go with Divine Strike instead of Pillars, so you can be less afraid of a kaiju hitting your big boss monster. Odd-Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon is a generic level 7 Synchro monster which would generally be busted out by using Asher Ogre and Darkwurm, Thubin, or Zefraxaton, or by using Zefra Neo and Veiler. What this does is that it special summons a monster in your Pendulum Zone of all places, and the primary use of this effect is to use it on 0 so you can Xyz summon the following monster. Odd-Eyes Absolute Dragon is a rank 7 Xyz monster that takes 2 level 7 monsters, so it is generic enough. If it is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can special summon an Odd-Eyes monster directly from your extra deck, so the idea is to use this card as link material and have the effect bust out the following monster. Odd-Eyes Vortex Dragon is a level 7 fusion monster that requires an Odd-Eyes monster and a Pendulum monster as material, but this thing will never be fusion summoned because that would be overly taxing. This card will be summoned by using the effect of Absolute Dragon because there is no restriction on such tactics. Now let's talk about the actual reason why we're playing this card, which is negation, but I swear that there is a more interesting interaction that I will cover in a minute. Regardless, if you were to play this card going second, you can also return an opponent's attack position monster to the hand. Gamma is not our only PSY-Frame card in this deck, as we actually have a small engine for the Archetype. PSY-Frame Lord Omega is a generic level 8 Synchro monster, so the idea behind playing PSY-Frame Lord Omega is that once Gamma is resolved on your own turn, you can Synchro Summon Omega, then use it to rip a card out of your opponent's hand to punish hand traps. Omega can also be used in conjunction with the following card. PSY-Frame Lord Lambda is a Link-to-Link monster that uses any 2 monsters as material but no tokens. This could be considered to be another one of those dual-purpose cards in this extra deck, though the primary reason why this card is played is because having this on the board lets you use Gamma while you control monsters, so playing this card can basically provide additional protection during gameplay. It also has the ability to search a PSY-Frame monster if you banish a Psychic monster from your board, specifically Omega, but this effect does not really come up, at least not for this particular deck so far. I will reconsider that in the future. Metallic Granite is a generic rank 4 Xyz monster that takes 2 level 4 monsters as material. By detaching material, you can search any rock monster, which is relevant because Zefra is this deck's primary card, and it is a rock monster. Furthermore, this card can be summoned instantly using Madalche Mageline to search Petting Sasor, summon Petting Sasor, then Xyz summon Granite. You can also help turbo this card out with Darkwurm since it's level 4. This card is a no-brainer to play. Oh, and you can also use this to search Nibiru the Primal Being if you're into that kind of stuff. Masquerania is a generic Link monster whose required materials are any 2 non-Link monsters. What she does is that she allows you to Link summon during your opponent's main phase, which is kind of crazy if you think about it because it lets you summon a Palusa on top of a pre-existing board that was already doing some work, or you can combine her with the next card in this list to really apply pressure onto an opponent. I most commonly use this to make a generic disruption with any 2 random monsters I happen to have on me. But another cool interaction is to make this with Absolute Dragon to summon Vortex Dragon immediately afterward. I really like this card for fairly obvious reasons. Oh, another thing I should mention is that if you use Masquerania to Link summon, and have Absolute Dragon as one of the other materials, you'll be able to use that first effect of Vortex Dragon to return an opponent's attack position monster to the hand, in addition to the negation effect going first. So that's a perk. Mekk-Knight Crusadia Abramax is a Link 4 monster that requires at least 2 monsters that were special summoned from the extra deck. This card cannot be targeted by card effects, and is the only monster that can be attacked while it is on the board. Furthermore, if this card battles a special summoned monster, it gains attack points equal to the attack of the other monsters, so this card basically exists to battle monsters with impossibly high attack. It has a particularly effective when combined with IP, as this would effectively render Abramax indestructible in addition to being untargetable, an asset to be had. Definitely good to use this against an unaffected monster that you would not be able to swing over via Borosaur Dragon. Number 41, Baguska, the Terribly Tired Tapir, is a generic rank 4 Xyz monster that takes 2 level 4 monsters as materials. This card's effect changes all monsters on the field to defense position and negates the activated effects of said monsters. This will not do anything to Link monsters, but everything else gets nixed. One of my favorite cards, to be honest. IP is my waifu and Baguska is my husbando, in a sense. Aside from Zefra, of course. Neither extra deck monster lets me shove 9 pillars up an opponent's trap hole.